Thank you for joining us on Coffee, Candidates, and Conversation. And this initiative, this little show of sorts that we put together, I guess a better term is interview, that we put together with each candidate is to give voters a real opportunity to learn about each candidate on a one-to-one basis and to really hear more about the candidate than just where they stand on the issues. We want to learn about them as a voter. We want to learn about their experience to the extent that we can. And we want you to have a personal opportunity, one-on-one, to learn about each candidate. Our special guest for today is Mr. Allan Creasy. He is running to represent us for District 97 in our Tennessee House of Representatives. So, Allan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure to be here tonight.
Yeah, we're so happy to have you. So let's kind of dive right in. I know you've been very patient, and you all may never know how difficult a time we had tonight on my end trying to get this together. But Allan Creasy, I can tell you, is a patient person, patient man. Let me get my seat up a little bit. So, Mr. Creasy, tell us something about you that we can't learn by Googling you or checking out your website, and that we wouldn't have learned if we worked with you in a professional capacity.
Ooh, that's a good question. I'd say that in normal times, about once a week, you'd find me singing karaoke someplace. There are many nerdy things about me, but that might be the biggest one. I absolutely love to sing karaoke. Anything from old country to rock to Outkast.
Okay.
I absolutely love it.
Favorite Outkast song?
Roses, but I cannot say the lyrics on this particular screen or as a candidate. That was the time that I was in high school growing up. It's the late '90s, so that was the music I was listening to. So as soon as I could get on stage and repeat certain words, that's what I was doing.
Well, man, I understand, man. I'm a big Outkast fan myself, and I think country music oftentimes has some of the best lyrics you'll find in a song, especially when you've been heartbroken and you're trying to get a song to help cheer you up. So, so of course, this is Coffee, Candidates, and Conversation. I've got my SEDP mug, and I've got me a Verona blend coffee. Okay, nice. Yeah, the Lee Harris mug. Are you drinking coffee or tea?
Just coffee, just black coffee.
No sugar, no cream.
No cream. No.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so we know that candidates are often, in full-on constituent mode. You're running to represent people in your district, and you're always trying to talk about the issues that are important to your constituents, and certainly the prioritization of those issues is a critical piece to earning votes. But on the other side of the house, or on the other side of the coin, rather, we know that each candidate is still a voter. So take your candidate hat off for a second, and let's talk as a voter. What issue for you as a voter is the most important issue?
I think public education, because I think everything that happens in our society relates back to public education. When we don't when we don't provide a child with the ability to succeed, we end up dealing with society's ills 18, 20, 25, 30 years from then. So when we talk about, when someone talks to me as a candidate, and if they don't really emphasize the issue of education, that's what really frustrates me, because I think it is the root cause to everything good in society, and I think the lack of education is the root cause of everything that happens terrible in our society.
I totally understand. Well, man, I'm glad to hear that. So tell us what made you decide to no longer just be a voter, but take that grand step to become an advocate and representative and leader who is going to, go and battle and fight for the interests of your constituents?
Well, for me, so I come from a very unusual vocation running for office. I'm a bartender, and I'm proud to have won Best Bartender and Memphis Award on several occasions. And there are a lot of stereotypes with my particular vocation, but one that rings very, very true is that people tell you their problems. And sometimes it's complaints that the Grizzlies aren't winning, or that their favorite TV show was canceled, or that they're having issues with the boyfriend or the girlfriend or the spouse. But as often as not, people are upset because they can't afford their health care, or the public school that they're sending their child to isn't where it needs to be, or performing the way it should be. A lot of times people are wondering, how are they going to make it to the next paycheck? Can you float me a tab? I'm a little short this week. And for me, standing behind that bar and listening to those problems, it got to a point where I couldn't just look at someone in the eye and say, wow, I wish I could do something. For me, it felt like I needed to actually, do something, use whatever resources that I had to try to make people's lives a little bit better. And so first, what I did was I helped out local nonprofits with their fundraising. So I would show up, I'd provide, food and libations donated to certain nonprofits. I get other bartenders, other servers, other cooks, other chefs to donate the food as well. And we'd help fundraise for organizations like Out Memphis or Choices, or other really amazing organizations that are making a positive impact in our community. But what I began to realize is that these organizations that are doing their absolute best to uplift Memphis and Shelby County in Tennessee, they're dropping the bucket from what government could do, and they're dropping the bucket from what government should do. And so I transitioned from that to helping local candidates run for office. And I was very, very proud, very privileged not only to start with that, helping at fundraise, but what I discovered that I was really good at was knocking on doors for candidates. Because what I was doing as a canvasser, as a volunteer, was I was knocking on a door and I was listening to people's problems, which is something that, my entire adult life, my entire vocation had set me up to do. And, that's, I've knocked on doors for different candidates, anywhere from, North Memphis, South Memphis, Midtown, East Memphis, Cordova, Germantown, Collierville, some of the absolute reddest areas of Shelby County, and some of the absolute bluest. And what I discovered was that, no matter where you live, the majority of voters in Shelby County want the same thing. They want good schools for their kids. They want access to opportunity. They want access to fair lending, and they want affordable health care, not just access, but actual health care. And that led me from being that super volunteer, and I'm very proud that I won the 2018 Shelby County Young Democrats Award, Barack Obama Award for volunteerism in local campaigns, helping out my fellow Democrats. To actually, looking to run for the seat. And in 2018, we were the first, our campaign was the first Democratic campaign to run in the seat in 14 years. At that point, it had not been considered viable by someone in our party. And I'm proud that we raised over $100,000, that we knocked on over 20,000 doors. I knocked on over 4,000 doors myself. And we came within 5 points of flipping a district that had not ever been seen viable for a long time. And so in 2020, we're back to finish what we started, and we're back to show that actually listening to people and listening to their people's problems is perhaps the most important aspect of a campaign and a candidates running for office.
Okay. Well, let's take that point. You said the most important thing is listening to your constituents' problems and really understanding what they are as a way to frame your approach to leadership and how to get results on things that matter for your district. So let's put that now, that campaign, that candidate hat back on, and tell us what, based on your conversations with the many constituents you've had an opportunity to meet and interact with, what issue has been, based on your estimation, like one of the front runner issues that you kind of you really want to take a stand on as a legislator. Let's talk about that.
Well, obviously it's evolved over the last few years. If I had talked to you, it's still an incredibly important issue. But if I talked to you 2 years ago, I would have stated education, and it still is, definitely. But in the era of COVID, healthcare has moved to definitely to the foreground, and it's very. I'm not going to say it's a simple solution, but we can definitely get better with something very simple that has not been done, and that is the expansion of Medicaid here in Tennessee. Unfortunately, since the Affordable Care Act has been passed, our state has been one of, at this point, only 12 states to expand Medicaid, which is the acceptance of about $1.3 billion a year from our federal government. It was first offered to us under the Obama administration. It's still being offered underneath the Trump administration. And that would provide health care to between 230 and 250,000 Tennesseans who are just above the poverty line. Now, what not accepting those federal funds has meant several things. It's meant that depending on what your definition of a hospital to a clinic is, Tennessee has lost at this point over a dozen hospitals, majority of which are in rural Western Tennessee, and that's horrible and that's terrible. In the era of COVID, when it takes 45 minutes to get a hospital, people are going to die. Mm-hmm. But for folks who maybe not have the same empathy that you and I do, Chairman, there's another reason why Tennesseans, Memphians, and Shelby Countyans should be concerned, and that's because on average, Tennesseans are spending about 9% more on monthly health insurance premiums than folks in states whose state legislature have been wise enough to expand Medicaid. And that's for one reason and one reason only. Right now, when those folks who do not have health insurance go to an emergency room, need desperately emergency care, those costs are being shifted onto us. So whether or not you're a voter who is concerned with folks who need help and desperately need help, or for your own pocketbook, this is to me a very common sense issue, and I am looking forward to casting my vote, finally accepting these federal funds to finally make healthcare just a little bit more affordable in Tennessee.
Okay. And I think that's a critical piece, especially in light of what's happening in our country with the rise and evolution of COVID-19, this pandemic. And it's had not only impact in terms of how we do business, but it's affecting now decisions relating to how our children and communities will be able to return back to school, and we'll be able to continue the education process. It's affecting people who have lost their jobs and now can't, and maybe don't have access to health care, and definitely not very many affordable options for health care. So I think that's a critical piece. How would you, on a scale from 1 to 10, how would you rank our response in the state of Tennessee to COVID-19?
Well, I think 1 being Florida and 10 being Michigan. I would put us about a 3. We could have definitely started social distancing about a week or 2 weeks earlier, and also when we have reopened past phase 1 to phase 2, I think sometimes the guidelines towards public meetings, restaurant openings, bar openings have not been specifically clear. Like I stated before, I work in a restaurant, and I proudly worked in restaurants since I graduated from University of Memphis. And as far as what my restaurant does, we are, going above and beyond what we need to do to make folks safe. But the issue is not so much the restaurant itself, but and sometimes it's the customer. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I think we needed a little bit more guidance at a statewide level, not just leaving it up to municipalities, because if someone wants to act inappropriately, wants to act in an unsafe manner, which could contract COVID, it doesn't matter whether or not you live in Memphis. Go to that restaurant in Memphis, go to that bar in Memphis, and if that's shut down, if you can go straight to Collierville, or you can go straight to Fayette County or straight to Pickens County, we're not really solving the problem. We're only pushing the problem around. And so that I think we needed more leadership from our governor and from our state legislature, and we needed them to actually work in our best interest, as opposed to pass these silly declarations that COVID is fake news, and completely unwarranted, and just shows just the complete irresponsibility of our state legislature in 2020.
Okay. Let me try something different. I want to just click on the tab, and we'll pull up a topic, and I just want to hear your perspective. Or let's talk about the first thing that comes to mind when you see it. And so the first one we'll start with is this. First thing that comes to mind, what are your thoughts about it? Tennessee and how we've handled it?
Utterly insane, utterly stupid, utterly ridiculous. The idea that our state legislature will pass legislation it knows to be fundamentally unconstitutional in order to win points in Republican primaries, in order to try to win back voters who are upset with our state legislature for its push forward with its voucher legislation. The fact that you and I will be spending our tax dollars so our state legislature can defend the idea that a 14-year-old who's the victim of rape or incest will not be able to have access to the health care that they need. That our tax dollars, literally millions of our tax dollars, will be used to defend this idiotic, nonsensical, and completely just utterly ridiculous bill. Whether or not you consider yourself to be in support of what I consider to be reproductive justice or reproductive rights, the idea that we are going to spend our tax dollars in court defending a law that is going to be shut down, and as soon as it was passed, a judge passed an injunction against it, is just an utter waste of our tax dollars. And when I'm in Nashville, I will be a very loud and vocal voice against legislation like this.
Okay, let's try another one.
Poverty. Wow, it's a very big subject, and it's a subject that I think we all have on our minds right now. Something that's very worrisome to me The addition to we as a nation are seeing unemployment numbers to the degree that we have not seen in 90 years since the Great Depression. That's frightening. And what's been keeping folks afloat has been that additional $600 offered on top of unemployment. And I think that's what's been a stopgap from something that's very worrisome to me, and something, and that is folks are going to get hungry. Folks are not going to be able to pay their rent, and folks are not going to be able to pay their mortgage. And something I think that's going to exacerbate this issue is when folks don't have access to fair lending, don't have access to a credit union or banks in their neighborhood. The first outlet we see across Memphis and across Shelby County is a payday lender. Title Max, a check into cash. These entities can charge up to 450% in interest, which I think is utterly unjust and utterly against the biblical law of usury. And of course, you always see when these businesses open up, you see the destruction of property values, which will mean that Memphis and Shelby County will receive less tax revenue and less able to provide the services that unemployed folks and regular folks and employed folks alike will not receive.
Now, did you say 150% or 400?
450% is the legal maximum in Tennessee for a payday loan. The average loan in Tennessee is 291%, and is normally over a period of 2 weeks. So if you can imagine, being $200 short on paying your rent or paying your cell phone or paying your mortgage, and your friends, your family, they're all tapped because they're dealing with the same issues that you're dealing with. You reach out for help, and suddenly 2 weeks later, that $200 is $590. You're going to see, and in many instances, that person will lose the title to their home, and in a city like Memphis and a county like Shelby, not having access to an automobile, and they could very much lose the title of their car to these institutions. You're going to see folks who desperately want jobs, desperately need to get jobs, but have no capability of getting jobs. So unless we can actually begin to deal with these issues of access to fair lending, I think you're going to see in the short term things get a lot worse here in Tennessee.
Man, and I absolutely agree, and I can say from firsthand experience, I know what that is like. To get in a really tough spot and have to make some tough decisions to find a way to make it on through. So let me I guess take you over into a different area, and let's talk about poverty in the sense of its relationship to education, and let's talk about maybe the funding for our public school system in Tennessee and its link to education. From a few articles that I've had an opportunity to read, they suggest that our schools across Tennessee are generally underfunded, especially towards meeting the demand for teacher salaries and competitive pay, making that amount between $600 million to $1 billion. So what are your thoughts on that, and what do you think you could do as a legislator, or at least what would you try and focus your energy as a legislator to have a positive impact on education across in a way that helps Tennessee and helps Shelby County?
Well, when it comes to education, what I believe is this: we don't have a shortage of teachers. We have a shortage of teachers who are willing to have graduate degrees, who are willing to work for $35,000 a year in the modern economy. We are not being competitive with the way that we pay teachers, the way that we fund public schools, and we either deal with these issues now, or we deal with an uneducated populace 15, 20 years from now. We deal with issues where young adults will have a higher predilection to crime because they have not been taught the skills to be able to be productive members, in our economy. So, to me, when we talk about funding, we have to think about what are the long-term effects for not funding a government service. And to me, not funding education is the number one no-no of government, and especially in a state that falls, I believe, 37th out of 50 states in funding per pupil. That simply must change. It has to change. Now, this is an even more pertinent issue right now when you look at what our state government has attempted to pass over the last 2 years. Straight from the playbook of Betsy DeVos, the least educated Secretary of Education in the United States, our governor, Bill Lee, did his absolute damnedest to pass a school voucher bill. Now, he called it the Education Savings Account, but a turd by any other name still stinks. And not only were they trying to push this the idea of taking public school money and putting it in private schools, but when Republican legislators across the state of Tennessee said, we do not want this in our backyard, we absolutely will not take this, at a very last minute on the floor of our state legislature, our now disgraced former Speaker of the House, Lynn Cassida, made a deal with a state representative from Knoxville to exempt Knoxville from the voucher bill. And so the voucher bill only pertained to Shelby County and to Davidson County, the two Democratic strongholds in this state. Their educational policy was not good enough for them, was not good enough for their children, but they'll foist it on us if it means they'll keep their Betsy DeVos happy. And that is absolutely infuriating. The idea that we could be 37th in funding for overall public for education, and we're going to take more funding out of the hands of our teachers, of our educators, and most importantly, our children, it makes me absolutely livid and makes me so upset. And even in these races where you're seeing Republican primaries amongst Republicans, you are seeing these Republicans being primaried across the state, and I hope and I pray that they will not be serving in our legislature come 2021.
Well, man, well, that's, you kind of hit on a lot of big topics, and one in particular is, the fact that there are residual effects to education. When we don't fund education adequately, and we don't provide a mechanism or support the infrastructure that we have to deliver that education, it has some impact that goes far beyond the classroom. And so let's go beyond the classroom. I think one of the issues in Shelby County, and certainly it's one of the issues that I think we all know too well in light of COVID-19, is that employment and the ability to earn a livable, I guess, an adequate amount of money to make a living on and to be able to support yourself is tough in Tennessee, especially if you're getting paid hourly, you know, the minimum wage hadn't changed in what, a decade in Tennessee, still 7.25. And I mean, what are your thoughts on that? And you know, what's your strategy? Do you think what do you think the minimum wage should be adjusted to? What argument would you make to support the minimum wage amount that you think would be fair?
Well, you know, I'm gonna address it in an odd way. My father, when he was putting himself through college at what was then called Memphis State, in between 1969 and 1972, he worked as a custodian. And as a custodian, he made $2.05 an hour. Now that sounds terrible. It sounds absolutely abysmal compared to the $7.25 an hour that is the federally mandated minimum wage, and is also the state minimum wage of the state of Tennessee. But when you adjust that for inflation, that would be roughly $13.70 an hour. And for me, you know, us as a nation, the goal of us of who we are should be that our nation should have more opportunity for our children than for what our parents had. And when it comes to the idea of wages, we're going backwards. Now, from 1970 until 2020, the last 50 years, in many ways, we have moved forward as a nation. We have moved forward in so many ways. But when it comes to the actual idea of paying people a wage where they not only can afford to put food on their family, pay their rent, but also be a driving force in the economy, being able to buy and purchase and move our economy forward, we're going backwards. And for me, when our Republican legislators, state that we need to be a business-friendly state, that we need to be friendly towards business, that we don't need to scare business away, we need to be a family-friendly state. We need to be a state where folks are encouraged for the idea of moving here, the idea that their children will do a little bit better, if not much better than what they are doing or what their parents were able to achieve. We have to move forward. We cannot be stuck in time, and we have to address this issue. And this is not when you look at other states. Obviously Tennessee has a Republican supermajority right now, but you look at Arkansas, who does have a Republican majority government, state government. They moved forward with an increase in minimum wage.
Yeah,
and
they have another one, a plan that should automatically roll it up again. Yeah, absolutely.
And to me, what it's going to take is sitting down with folks across both parties and explaining and having a respectful conversation that what our state government is doing as far as wages are concerned is not to the benefit of Tennessee in the long term, and definitely not to the benefit of places like Memphis that do have higher costs of living than perhaps other areas of the state.
And I totally understand. And an interesting story is about my grandfather. He and my grandmother have been married 70 years. It'll be 71 years on Christmas Eve. And he often tells the story of how on his first date with my grandma, that his dad gave him 75 cents to take her out on a date and asked him to make sure he brought some change back. And so he took her to a carnival, and they, had a good time at the carnival, and he was able to bring a quarter back to my great grandfather. And I think that speaks volumes that, when you make the argument, which is very compelling, about the adjustment from inflation for $2 and change is $13 and change today. And, and we're $6 and change, or really a $5 and change off the mark from where we need to be, just even in terms of that number being adjusted for inflation. But if we look at where we are, even $13, do you think that $13, obviously it's better than $7, 25. But do you think that that would be enough to constitute a livable wage in today's?
I mean, obviously, I believe in an increase in minimum wage. Believe in moving forward towards, the slogan is the fight for 15. I believe in the fight for 15 very strongly. I do believe in doing that in a graduated method over the course of 3 to 4 years, so it's not a complete shock to local and small businesses, but doing so in a way where we can begin to move forward, and we can do so within the next 5 years.
Okay. Well, I have 2 more questions for you. One question, I think everybody wants to know the answer to this question, and that is, if you are elected and are going to go to Nashville to represent District 97, when you walk in, you're going to see 76 Republicans, or is this, I believe it's 72 to 76. I don't know the actual.
I think it's 72 to 27 right now.
72 Republicans.
We picked up a seat.
You'll be one of 27 Democrats. Well, if you win, you'd be 28 Democrats to 71 Republicans. And so walking in to that mix, how do you plan to be effective? And what strategies would you employ, or employ to kind of be more productive in that environment?
Well, to me, when you are a member of the supermajority of any legislature, or the minority in a legislature, you have 2 options. You can either scream bloody murder at the injustices that the party in power are doing. And yes, I completely empathize, and I completely sympathize with anyone who would want to do that. I mean, it is incredibly upsetting and frustrating to see the legislation that's been passed in Tennessee over the last 4 to 5 years. But to me, that's only a moral victory. What I'm looking forward is actually getting legislation passed that can move forward and actually make the lives of Shelby Countyans better. And I think someone who's done this fantastically well, amazingly well, and I consider a good friend, is Representative London Lamar. When she had not made too many friends when she walked into that legislature, but she charmed, she coaxed, and when she talked to legislators who are not in favor of reproductive justice or reproductive rights for women, she said, "Well, that's okay. We're going to disagree on that. Let's look at legislation that will make it easier, that will be able to take care of women in high school who are pregnant, and ensure that they're able to graduate from high school." And to me, I think you have to be creative. The main reason why I'm concerned about payday lenders is because of how it takes advantage of people and how they specifically target minority and veteran communities. But a Republican who lives in a middle-class district does not want those businesses in their neighborhoods. They don't want to see them there. They don't want to see the value of homes in their district degrade, because it put them being reelected in trouble again. And so for me, when it comes to issues like payday lending, when it comes to issues like Medicaid expansion, not just for the reason why I care about it, to me, it is finding someone who might have a different reason why to agree with an issue. This is something you'll never really talk about in forums or in issues, but you look at Northwest Arkansas and you look at North Carolina. In the last dozen or so years, they've had microbrewing booms. They are bringing in literally hundreds of millions of dollars through local breweries. They're bringing hundreds of billions of dollars of taxable revenue into their state.
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee has the highest taxation on beer in the United States. It's $1.51 a gallon. In comparison, Wyoming is roughly 3 cents a gallon. We have 20 members of our state legislature who in 2020 still believe in prohibition. But that leaves 79 who do not. So if we work together to lower taxation on beer to where it's not at a prohibition era, to prohibition style taxation, and instead try to encourage local microbreweries across the state, we could see again hundreds of millions of dollars of taxable revenue brought to the state. And to me, any tax that you and I don't have to pay, that employs folks from across the state, means that you and I don't have to pay a certain tax, and it means that you and I can have greater access to resources provided by government. So to me, all of these issues come back to being creative, picking your battles, and when you meet a legislator that you only agree with 30% of issues on and disagree with the other 70%, you work together with them on that 30% that you agree with, that you agree on.
Okay, so what if, and then this is, I guess, just a quick follow-up. What if the 30% just doesn't align with what the need is in terms of fixing something relevant to the need? And just like one of the tough examples, I believe our Republican legislature, as relates to increasing the minimum wage, they feel that the workforce demand and the market economy should drive the increase or a lack thereof in hourly wages, and so they don't want to regulate that and increase it. And let's just assume that that's the issue. I mean, we don't even have to assume it. That is an issue. To target that issue, I mean, how are you working at an impossible situation? And I know it's a tough question to answer. I don't know that there's one size fits solution type of answer to it. But I mean, what are your thoughts on it? How do you do it?
I mean, I think you have to be creative. I think you have to point out that there are a lot of folks who identify as Republican, but a lot of voters who identify as Republican, but also members of unions. Mm-hmm. And you basically say, look, we're not asking for a complete inability for business to conduct itself in the state. We're asking for gradual changes to move forward to have the same access and opportunity that your parents had. For me, when I'm talking to someone who identifies as conservative, my first response is, well, are we talking about being conservative in aspects of how society treats the minority communities, how we treat the LGBT community, or how we treat the LGBT community? Or are we being conservative in the way that, or do you mean conservative in general? Because if we do not push forward, to me, the idea of increasing minimum wage, it's not just a progressive issue. In many ways, you can argue it's a conservative issue. It's stating that our children need and deserve the same opportunities, the same ability to gain wealth, the same ability to be able to buy that first home as my father did 50 years ago. And to me, it's finding that creative way of getting to someone who is not normally on your side, would not normally agree with your issues. And to me, that's the most important thing, and I think that's how we move forward.
Okay, I like that. Approaching it with creativity. Well, here's the money question, and let's hear it. This will be our last question for this conversation. I'm at the bottom of my cup of coffee. Give me one more sip. All right. So, taking a step back and looking at District 97, I want you to do a SWOT analysis. Looking at it as a legislator, what do you see as the greatest strength of District 97? I know it's hard to just isolate District 97, so I understand that the analysis has to relate, to Shelby County generally. But what do you see as the greatest strength of District 97? What do you see as the greatest weakness? What do you believe is the biggest opportunity, and what do you feel is the biggest threat to District 97 moving forward from where it currently is today?
Strengths. I'm going to give you two strengths. I know that's cheating, but it's a very diverse district. It moves from the Poplar Corridor, so very wealthy families to my neighborhood, which is very working class. Bartlett, which is very middle class, and Northern Cordova, which can move from very working class to very middle class. And to see that folks have so much in common and willing to stand beside each other to move forward with a Democratic candidate and Democratic ideals is so important. But beyond that, we have Bartlett City Schools, we have White Station, we have White Station High School, White Station Elementary. We have some of the most amazing public schools here in Shelby County and in Tennessee. It'll be my never-ending fight to preserve those schools, the quality of those schools, and the quality of education which they provide.
So, in terms of the weaknesses,
weaknesses moving forward, we need more engagement from folks. Now, we had the same state representative for 14 years, and he ran unopposed, both in his Republican primary and in the general for more than a decade. So there has not been that level of engagement from government to citizen and citizen back to engagement. And that's something I'm working very hard with being as accessible as humanly possible to the voters of District 97. And that's why I put my phone number on every piece of mail on my website, and that my phone number is 901-538-1889. We need, for too long, we have been separate from government. We've thought of it as something else, as something that happened in Nashville and did not directly relate to us. And what I've seen, using my good friend Dwayne Thompson as a mentor and as someone who's really helped us, being able to receive that phone call from a citizen who's dealing with the issues of unemployment, and being able to get them connected to someone who can actually get them the government benefits that they deserve and that they so desperately need. And that phone number again is 901-503-1889. And to me, that is something that will try to fix that gulf that so many of the citizens of this district believe between themselves and the people who actually represent them. Okay. Opportunities moving forward. We have community college here in District 97 with we want to move forward. The very southeastern tip almost touches University of Memphis. To me, the opportunity is utilizing those amazing public schools that I aforementioned, ensuring that folks who have the want or need of either vocational training or a bachelor's degree can achieve that and will achieve that in this district. Threats. It's all going to come back to education again. With our state legislatures and our governors, constant push towards the privatization of public schools, towards the defunding of public schools. In an area where so many folks have most recently moved here from areas of Midtown, North Memphis, South Memphis, who have moved here to have a better life and a better opportunity and a better opportunity for their children. Nothing would sadden me more, nothing would anger me more than we lose the greatest asset of this area. And that's why when I go to Nashville, there will be a very loud, very proud, very vocal voice, but one who is willing to find friends across the aisle who will fight for public education.
I like it. I like it. Well, Allan, you've done a wonderful job sharing information with us and helping us get to know you a lot better. And voters, if you're watching, take some notes and draw your chart out and watch this video for all the candidates so you can make a good decision about who will be the best representative. And I want to say a couple things really quickly before we give Allan Creasy an opportunity to close us out and ask for the vote and tell us why we should vote for him. And so what I want to share with everyone is something critically important to us. And it's that our census is ongoing. It'll be going, they'll be taking the census survey through the beginning of December, and we need to participate. I'm encouraging everybody, look, let's come to our census and take the census. It is critically important that we do so. That affects how money is allocated throughout our country. It affects how our district lines are drawn, which has the impact of affecting who represents us and having balanced representation across Shelby County. We do not want to miss this opportunity to strengthen Shelby County with balanced and diverse leadership. And so complete the census, and let's make sure that every dollar that should come to Tennessee and Shelby County actually gets here. And next, I want to say that, everyone can make a difference, and one vote can be the difference. We've got to get out and vote. Make sure that if you've requested an absentee ballot, that you check on it early. And if you haven't received your absentee ballot, make a phone call to the Election Commission, send an email to the Election Commission, and do whatever it takes to get that absentee ballot. The deadline to request that absentee ballot is July 30th. And that means they need to have the request in hand by July 30th. And as soon as you get that ballot, you need to be sending it off so that it can be counted on August 6th. Understand that if you have requested an absentee ballot, then you're not supposed to go vote in person. But if you do decide to go vote in person for whatever reason, your vote will be cast on a provisional ballot, which may or may not be counted in this election. So let's not take the risk of having our votes not be included in the official tally. And we want to make sure that our voice is heard in these elections. And so with that being said, let me go ahead and give Mr. Allan Creasy an opportunity to tell us why we should vote for him and to ask you all for your vote. So Mr. Creasy, close us out.
Thank you so much, Chairman. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today, and I thank you so much for being able to provide access to down ballot candidates and campaigns. That's something that's sorely needed. You will not find a more accessible state legislature than myself. I want to be there for you. I want to be that person who can help you with your day-to-day problems. Prior to COVID, I knocked on about 6,000 doors between 2018 and 2020. I will be at your front door, and I'll be there with my phone number, and you will be able to reach me at any time. If I vote in a way that you don't think is appropriate, you can call me, you can text me, you can email me, and I'm going to have that conversation with you, because that to me, I think is a representative's job, to actually represent you. So whether, and so my phone number again is 901-503-1889. So whether or not it's for issues of education, whether it's issues of healthcare, whether it's issues of access to fair lending, whether it's the issues of women's reproductive justice or the LGBT community, I stand with you 100%, and I will stand with you. In 2018, no one, very few people thought that this was a viable race for someone in my party, and we worked hard to earn your vote and came within 5 points of flipping this district. I humbly ask the opportunity in this primary to be able to finish what we started, to move forward, to make Tennessee a little bit bluer, a little bit more accessible, and to provide just a little bit better government. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Allan Creasy. And again, Allan Creasy is a candidate who is running to represent you in District 97 in our Tennessee House of Representatives. And so be sure to visit his website at Allan Creasy, www.allancreasy.com. And is that number correct?
1889. I apologize.
Okay, so that number is actually 1889. So it is 901-503-1889. And just to make sure that we have it correct for those who are writing it down, we'll post that for you. 901-503-1889. So Mr. Creasy has given you a promise that he'll be accessible, and he's opened the door for you to call him if you have any questions. Definitely check out his website. We think it's important to support candidates, and we think it's very important to evaluate all the candidates so that you can make a really informed decision. And that's what this is all about. So Allan Creasy, thank you so much for joining the Shelby County Democratic Party for Coffee, Candidates, and Conversations for this sessions and series. So thank you so much, and we hope you have a great day and a wonderful campaign period all the way through August 6th. So thank you so much, and thank you all for viewing.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you all for being here.